You know, I really don't have regrets. I am a person that says, you know, as soon as you look back in your history and you come up with something that you feel like you want to change, something else has to change. You know, so.
What about your biggest disappointment?
Once again, that's the same analogy. You know, disappointment to me, to win, you gotta lose. To be successful, you gotta have something that's not successful. To be happy, you gotta have disappointment. So I think all of those things have evolved and happened to make me who I am and understand the benefits and the privileges I have for being who I am, you know, and not to wear it on my sleeve, be very humble about it. That's one thing my parents taught me very well is, you know, don't wear your reputation, don't wear your accolades, don't wear your, you know, your personality on your sleeve. Let it happen, let it be you. It is who you are. Don't hide from it, but don't wear it, rub it in people's face.
You talk about performance without a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
So, like, for instance, let's say you have no races. Let's say you have no classes, no nothing. There's no purpose in your life. You know, people need to have purpose to get up. They need purpose to perform. You need to get to a point in your life where there's nothing on the docket. There's no 5K, there's no I'm gonna get into school to be this or that, and still perform to the highest level. Because what people don't get is one day that thing's gonna come up. And if you're not constantly performing without purpose, you're not gonna be ready when the time comes. It's this magical thing, purpose, that we're all looking for. But what's funny about it all is that we need these things to perform. But we don't take a second to realize the purpose is always there. The purpose never leaves us because the very purpose is you. You are always the purpose. There may be another purpose, like being a SEAL or going to college or whatever, but the main purpose in life is you. So if you wake up in the morning and you don't want to do something, you don't care enough about yourself. And that's what you need to really research is, man, why am I not doing this for myself? Because that is the number one purpose in life, is to better oneself. So that's the only purpose I fucking need. So the reason I get up every day, even though there's no race or there's no school, or there's nothing in front of me, is because I have pride in myself.
The key to being successful is planting. You've got to plant. Now, when you plant seeds, young people, you can't expect a harvest in 30 days. The harvest don't come in 30 days. You got to plant your seed, and sometimes the harvest don't come for years. Everything is not instant. So here's what I do. I get a row and I drop seeds in the ground. Then I go back and I cover them up with dirt, because the dirt, you need the dirt. Then once I cover it up, I dig another row and I plant some more seeds. I got about 10 rows planted. I look back at the first row and it's starting to sprout. Some stuff starting to come out the ground. I don't go back to that first row and just start eating, because it ain't really bearing no fruit right now. You can't eat the stalks and the leaves. You gotta wait till it bears fruit. In the meantime, you got to keep planting. Now, you're gonna look up in about 5 years, you're gonna look back at something you planted 5 years ago, gonna have a lot of fruit on it. Then you can go back and start partaking of that fruit. But the reason you gotta keep planting is because sometimes you're gonna get rained out. Sometimes it's gonna be a drought. Sometimes, man, the pesticides / haters is gonna do what they do to your planted crops. Now, you got to mentally be prepared for that. But the planting process can never stop. If I could tell anybody anything, keep planting seeds and never stop planting, because you have no idea when God gonna drop all the necessary rain and you look up and everything you need is right there.
The hardest part of all of it is being vulnerable enough to admit the abuse, admit the past. Most of us don't want other people to know that, and that's
right.
The hardest part, to open up and be that vulnerable.
Right.
When did that start to bubble to the surface for you and you start to see vulnerability as a strength?
Well, words started making me, I had to stop giving a fuck about people. That was the biggest thing. I had to stop caring what people thought about me. I realized that everybody's fucked up. That's the one thing I realized. I walked around and I put these people on a fucking pedestal. Everybody was better than me. So I can't tell you anything about me because you're gonna judge me and I'm gonna feel even worse than what I am. What I realized, once I calmed my mind down and sat back and looked at how jacked up this world is, once you realize that you are not alone, everybody that's talking to you about how jacked up you are, only thing they've done better than you is they've hidden their fucked up world better than you have. That's all they've done. So once I realized that, if you want to sit back, like for instance, there's all these things that are on TV and we have all these news people judging people who fuck up in life. And yeah, they made big mistakes. But that person who is judging you on TV, I guarantee you that news person is saying, I'm glad that my shit didn't come out, but I'm gonna judge the hell out of you. I know that about people. So if you want to sit back and judge how jacked up I was and how messed up my life was, Merry Christmas, go for it. Have a good time. But I'm smiling at you right now, knowing you have a secret that you're not willing to share. It gives you a lot of power when you're able to go on a podcast this big and say, hey, tell me, I'll tell you anything you want to know, 'cause I no longer care. And that is a lot of power in that, to be able to put your life on a billboard for the whole world to see and say, judge it, man. Judge it. Like just me talking about it makes me feel good. And that's another thing about it. When you are willing to talk about how jacked up you are, the strength, that big rock that you carry, it just starts to come off you. It just starts to come off. That's why I do it so often. I'm like, hey man, I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of not telling you shit. I'm tired of lying about how good I'm not.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks.
Because as humans, I think naturally we go into situations sometimes and we're selfish. And so we want to see, how can this benefit me? How can I go into the situation and it best benefits me and everybody that I'm connected? Like, how can I get the edge in this situation? Instead of stepping back and understanding that when you're selfish, it's a dangerous thing, because when you're selfish and you go into situations at a certain point in life, we're always going to come up against something that's a lot tougher than us. And if we're always selfish, 9 out of 10 times, if the only thing we think about is just ourselves, when we hit something that's a lot tougher than us, we don't have a driving force to do what we do. And so it's easy for us to surrender, step back and say, man, forget it. I'll throw it away. It's just like I'm married, right? And so I'm young, I'm 6 years in. And so I went to an old couple one time and they were married some crazy years, 60 years, something like that. And I said, right, crazy, insane. But I'm saying, how did you make it last that long? And they said, the reason we made it last this long is because we come from an era when something is broken, we don't throw it away, we fix it. And so as people, the way I approach situations, how can when something is broken, I don't throw it away and I don't let the circumstance or the situation define my life, but I try to figure out how can I fix it, and fixing it may not be my arm working, but fixing it may be me using it every day to be a blessing in somebody else's life.